Is it correct to say that these are single images that you compose and create and then copy that what you've made? I don't understand how, each one of what we saw tonight were single images. Is that correct?
Hmm? Yeah, but it has a larger kind of project about it. I start with drawings. I change the drawings. I don't rely on basically doing everything what the drawings show. I rely on the physicality and the consciousness of the model or even the object to change things around. So it's a question of discovery. And then lastly, after the photograph is taken, that's not the last of it. The last of it is my printing of the image.
So the prints you make are in editions, or is it just, I see.
I make a master print, 16 by 20, and then I might spend a few days, or even I spend as long as a month on one print. But as soon as I have it, that's the benchmark for the rest of the work. And I basically have a certain number of small 16 by 20 images and a number of large images. When I go that way, sometimes they're just small, sometimes they're just big.
Thanks.
We have another question over here.
Although you frequently have described the problems with our world, it seems that you're an optimist. Is that how you describe yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think, not to compare myself, I didn't know him personally, but just by way of aesthetic comparisons, Francis Bacon, I don't think was an optimist. I think he was a very, very sad, despairing person, but he worked to show that in a very, very wonderful way. No one bats 1,000. I certainly don't bat 1,000, but his contribution, I think, was wonderful, and I've always admired what he's done. Yeah, I'm an optimist, because if I wasn't an optimist, I'd be locked up. And for good reason.
Do you keep your drawings?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm in the process of having my archive put together because I'm an old cat. And I had to choose from over 1,000 drawings. I throw a lot of them out. You know, they're not finely made, you sweat out kind of an, like it's not like an encre drawing, you know. It's emotional. I try to put down the emotion. And in that psychic kind of connection, the way I draw and put things around, as I put something in that I didn't manifest before. So it's a discovery. And through that discovery is how I change. I'm constantly changing what I plan to do. For instance, even this afternoon, I had this idea of having, it sounds terrible, but I think it'll work well. It's called Weeping Woman's Day Off, and it's about Picasso's wonderful painting of the woman in tears, it's called, you know? But we call it Weeping Woman, just as a reference. And I found this incredible, beautiful woman, as the model. And I showed her, she came to the studio, she agreed, no problem. We're gonna paint a background. But it's gone through a change because it'll probably change again. But the idea I had is that it's based on her rising in the morning. So it's l'heure, you know, so it's a woman rising out of sleep. And, but this is her day off, and in front of her, in the foreground, is the parts of The Woman in Tears by Picasso. But I really shouldn't say this, but what the hell. The idea I had today is I made sketches of her when she's vomiting flowers. In other words, she's basically a slave. She's given herself as the form of expression or the starting point to Picasso's painting. I don't know what that means. And I never know until I put it together, take the photograph, make the print.
Can you talk about, I noticed that in some of the earlier work,
in a lot of the earlier work, there's scratches and spills and stains and things like that. It's sort of like post-production
Yeah.
elements. I just want to know at what point in the process you make the decision to start adding that stuff.
I did that at first in the first couple of years, about 1976, 77, because I really wanted to show the fragility of the photographic surface and the fact that it wasn't sacrosanct. It could be marred, changed. And it goes back a little bit to the story of the 4-year-old seeing the war pictures. And so it's something I choose to do or choose not to do. And that's what takes so long in the production. But usually it's one negative that's the right one. And I have a history of blowing it. I just don't make a mark and then check it out. I make a kind of a primordial language on the negative. And sometimes I basically blew it. And that's what happens sometimes. But you don't get more careful, you get more courageous.
Thanks.
I'm noticing, and certainly with this presentation, that you go from the dead to the living over time. Your subject matter. Am I correct in seeing this? And if so, why have you moved in that direction?
It's what I'm exposed to. I mean, I stopped making photographic human remains in the year 2000 in Eastern Europe. I photographed something called Corpus Medius, half a man, and a man that was cut in half. And then different things happened in my life. And of course, I never photographed in the States except for the early period because a pathologist at the University of New Mexico made it possible for me to do that. But then I was photographing mostly in Eastern Europe, where they have a different kind of reality. But again, I don't know. I mean, if there were, if I met a pathologist and circumstances were that I could photograph, I would check it out. Because death for me is not, I know it's powerful. It's powerful because we don't want to end our connection with life, and it's inevitable, all that stuff, for sure. But theologically, in my case, I think it's the beginning of eternal life. And so I'm not using these human remains as kind of props. I really feel a kind of a sanctity and a purpose when I'm allowed, and usually the pathologist is there while I'm working to make these photographs. And I feel I'm honoring the memory and purpose of this non-claimed body. I remember being in Mexico, I was photographing, and there was a beautiful, beautiful girl that they wheeled in, and she died of liver failure. So she was yellow, and she was very beautiful. She had just, I guess, just washed her hair and dried herself because I could smell the shampoo on her hair because she was on the gurney. And the pathologist says, well, she's gorgeous, why don't you photograph her? I said, I can't because our family's outside, they're breaking up. They're in tears. And so you can't abuse any kind of privilege. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your listening to what I had to say.